Ambassador Thrixol stood outside the great doors of the Galactic Council chambers. Her massive body blocked the hallway. 8 feet of muscle, armored scales, and claws that could cut through steel. The Vorkai were the most feared predators in the known galaxy. Entire planets had surrendered at the mere sight of their warships. But right now, Thrixol felt like the weakest creature in the universe. 3 small bodies pressed against her legs, her cubs. Keth, the eldest, tried to look brave. His tiny fangs showed, but his tail wrapped around his mother's ankle. Mira, the middle child, kept looking around with wide golden eyes. And Sola, the smallest, the runt of the litter, simply buried her face in her mother's scales and trembled. Their father was dead, killed in a shuttle accident just 2 days ago. The grief was still fresh, still raw. Thrixol had not slept since she received the news. She had only held her cubs and tried to keep breathing. And now, the council had summoned her. The negotiations today would decide everything. Trade rights across 17 star systems. Access to resources her people desperately needed. If she failed, if she did not appear, the Meridax Consortium would win. They had been pushing against the Vorkai for decades. They would not show mercy. But she could not bring her cubs into the chambers. The rules were clear. No children in diplomatic sessions. And she could not leave them alone. Vorkai cubs were precious beyond measure. Among her people, only blood family could guard the young. To leave them with outsiders was unthinkable, dangerous, wrong. Those who threatened Vorkai cubs did not live long enough to regret it. Thrixol closed her eyes. She was trapped. No family on this station, no one she could trust. She would have to abandon the negotiations. Her people would suffer. They always came first. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "Excuse me. Are you all right?" Thrixol's eyes snapped open. Her claws extended on instinct. A human stood before her. Male, small, soft skin, no armor, no natural weapons. He wore the simple gray uniform of a diplomatic aide. His skin was dark brown, his hair cut short, and his eyes held a gentle concern that made no sense to her. Humans were strange creatures. They had arrived on the galactic scene only a century ago. They were weak by most standards. No claws, no venom, no armor. They could not run fast or see in the dark. By all logic, they should have been prey. And yet they had spread across the stars with surprising speed. They talked too much, smiled too much, and had an annoying habit of trying to make friends with everything they met. This one was called Dr. Samuel Okonkwo. Thrixol had seen him at previous council sessions. He worked for the Earth delegation. He was unimportant. "I am fine," Thrixol growled. Her translator made the words flat and cold. Samuel did not step back. Most species retreated when a Vorkai growled. He simply tilted his head and looked at the cubs pressed against her legs. "The council session is about to start," he said, "but you cannot bring them inside." "I am aware. Do you have someone to watch them?" Thrixol's claws dug into her palms. "That is not your concern, human." Samuel nodded slowly. He looked at the cubs again. Sola had peeked out from behind her mother. Her golden eyes met the human's brown ones. For a moment, neither moved. Then Samuel did something strange. He crouched down, making himself smaller. He did not approach. He did not reach out. He simply lowered himself to the cub's level and waited. "Hello there," he said softly. "You must be very tired. It is scary being in a new place, is it not?" Thrixol's translator struggled with his tone. There was no threat in it, no hunger, no calculation. Just warmth, like sunlight on rocks, like the safe darkness of a den. Keth growled at him. Samuel smiled. "You are very brave," Samuel told the cub. "Protecting your family. That is good. That is what brothers do. Thrixall felt something shift in her chest, something old and instinctive. Her people had survived for millions of years by trusting their instincts. Right now, every predator sense she had was telling her something impossible. This human was safe. I could watch them. The words hit Thrixall like a physical blow. She stared at the human. Her claws came out fully. Her scales shifted to threat coloring. Several aliens in the hallway scrambled to get away. What did you say? Samuel did not flinch. His heart rate did not change. There was no fear scent on him. He simply looked up at her with those calm brown eyes. The session will last several hours. You cannot miss it. I have no duties this afternoon. He gestured to a door down the hall. My quarters are just there. I have food, water, entertainment screens. I can keep them safe until you return. You are offering to guard my cubs. Yes. You are prey. Samuel smiled again. It was a strange expression. Humans showed their teeth when they were happy. It should have looked threatening. Instead, it looked warm. Where I come from, he said, we have been taking care of children for a very long time. All children, not just our own. Thrixall did not move. Her mind raced. This was wrong. This was against every tradition, every instinct. A stranger, an alien, a prey species, watching Vorkai cubs. It was madness. But the council doors were opening. She could hear the delegates taking their seats. The Muridax representative was already inside, waiting to destroy everything her people had worked for. She looked down at her cubs, at Ket's brave little face, at Mira's curious eyes, at Sola, who was still looking at the human with something that might have been interest. Her mate was dead. Her people needed her. And this small, soft, defenseless human was offering to do the impossible. Thrixall made a decision that would change galactic history. If they are harmed, she said, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper, I will tear this station apart with my bare claws. I will find everyone you have ever loved. I will. I understand, Samuel said. He did not look away. They will be safe. I promise. Thrixall crouched down. She touched her snout to each of her cubs' heads. Keth whimpered. Mira held her hand. Sola just stared. Go with this human, she told them. I will return soon. Be brave. Then she stood, turned, and walked into the council chambers without looking back. Samuel Okonkwo looked down at 3 terrified Vorkai cubs, the most dangerous children in the galaxy, apex predators in miniature. Well then, he said gently, who wants to hear a story? Down the hall, a security drone watched in disbelief as the human led the cubs into his quarters. The entire station held its breath. The door closed behind them. Samuel's quarters were small but comfortable. A bed against one wall, a desk with a computer terminal, a window that showed the stars outside, some plants in pots near the light, pictures on the walls showing places on Earth. The 3 Vorkai cubs stood frozen near the entrance. They did not know what to do. Their mother was gone. Their father was dead. And now they were alone with a creature their instincts told them was food. Keth stepped in front of his siblings. His small claws were out. His fangs showed. He was barely 3 feet tall, but he was trying to be brave, trying to be like father had been, the protector, the guardian. Samuel saw all of this. He did not approach them. Instead, he walked slowly to the far side of the room and sat down on the floor. He made himself as small as possible. He remembered something his grandmother had taught him long ago, back in Nigeria, when he was just a boy. When you meet a frightened animal, she had said, you do not chase it. You do not grab it. You sit. You wait. You let it come to you. His grandmother had been talking about the stray dogs that wandered their village. But Samuel had found that the advice worked for almost everything. Scared children, nervous diplomats, alien species meeting humans for the first time. And now, apparently, Vorkai comes. "You do not have to come closer," Samuel said softly. "You can stay right there if you want. I will not touch you. I will not hurt you." Keth growled. The sound was high-pitched, almost cute, though Samuel would never say that out loud. "I know you are scared," Samuel continued. "I would be scared too. Your mother had to leave and now you are stuck with a strange alien. That is not fun." Mira peeked out from behind Keth. Her golden eyes blinked rapidly. The Vorkai equivalent of curiosity Samuel remembered from his xenobiology classes. "Would you like to hear a story?" Samuel asked. "Where I come from, we tell stories to children when they are scared. It helps pass the time." No response, but no attack either. Samuel took that as permission. He began to speak. He told them the story of Anansi the spider. It was an old tale from his people. Anansi was small and weak, but he was clever. He tricked creatures much larger than himself. He used his brain when his body was not strong enough. Samuel did not know if the cubs understood the words. Their translators were probably still adjusting to his accent. But they understood his tone. Calm, gentle, rhythmic, like waves on a beach, like wind through leaves. Mira inched forward, just a little. Keth hissed at her, but she ignored him. 1 hour passed. Samuel finished the Anansi story and started another. This one was about a boy named Simba, who lost his father. He made his voice soft when the sad parts came. He made it bright and quick during the exciting parts. He had told these stories many times to his nieces and nephews back home. Children were the same everywhere, he was beginning to realize. They needed the same things: safety, comfort, attention. Mira was now sitting in the middle of the room. Her tail swished back and forth. When Samuel made a funny voice for one of the characters, she made a sound that might have been a laugh. Sola, the smallest cub, had not moved. She stayed behind Keth, her face hidden. But Samuel noticed that her trembling had stopped. 2 hours passed. Someone knocked on the door. Samuel stood slowly and answered it. A Thessian stood outside. Crix, the information broker. They were a thin creature with too many eyes and skin that changed color with their mood. Right now, they were pale purple with shock. "You are alive," Crix said. "Yes? The station has been watching your door for 2 hours. The betting pools have been running. Most thought you would be dead by now." Samuel blinked. "Betting pools? Humans are strange," Crix said. "But we did not think you were stupid. You are alone with Vorkai cubs. Their mother could kill a warship with her bare hands. If anything happens to them, nothing will happen to them." Crix stared at him. Their many eyes blinked in sequence. "How can you be so calm?" Samuel thought about it. How could he explain? Humans had been doing this for as long as they had existed. Taking in strays, caring for the abandoned, looking at dangerous creatures and seeing not threats, but friends. "They are just children," Samuel said simply. "Scared children who lost their father and missed their mother. That is the same everywhere." He closed the door. 3 hours passed. Mira had discovered the entertainment screen. Samuel showed her how to use it. She found a program with bright colors and simple shapes. She watched it with total focus, her tail wrapped around her feet. Keth had finally stopped growling. He sat near the door, still on guard, but his claws were no longer out. His eyes kept drifting to the screen where his sister sat. And Sola. Samuel felt a small weight against his leg. He looked down. The tiny runt had crept across the room without him noticing. She stood next to him, her golden eyes huge in her face, her small body pressed against his knee. Very slowly, Samuel lowered his hand. He did not touch her. He just let his hand rest near her, palm up, offering but not taking. Sola looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she climbed into his lap. She weighed almost nothing. Her scales were soft, not yet hardened into adult armor. She curled up against his chest, tucked her head under his chin, and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep. Samuel sat very still. His heart was full of something he could not name. This tiny predator, this child of the most feared species in the galaxy, trusted him. Trusted him enough to sleep in his arms. Across the room, Keth watched. His golden eyes were unreadable. But after a few minutes, he stood up and walked over. He did not climb into Samuel's lap, but he sat down next to him, close enough to touch, and leaned against his side. He did not growl. Samuel began to tell another story, keeping his voice low so he would not wake Sola. 4 hours passed. In a surveillance room somewhere on the station, Security Chief Valorian watched the feed from Samuel's quarters. They were a crystalline being, hard and cold and logical. They had seen many things in their long career. Wars, betrayals, impossible acts of courage and cowardice. They had never seen anything like this. "What is he doing?" Valorian asked their assistant. The assistant, a young human woman, smiled. "He is babysitting." Babysitting? It is what humans do. We watch children, we take care of them, even when they are not ours. Valorian watched the screen. The human was teaching the middle cub some kind of hand game. They slapped their palms together in a pattern, making sounds with each slap. The cub kept getting it wrong and laughing. "Why?" Valorian asked. "What does he gain?" The assistant shrugged. "Nothing. That is the point." Valorian did not understand, but they saved the recording anyway. They had a feeling it would be important. Deep in the station's data center, Crix, the information broker, worked through the night. Their many eyes moved across multiple screens at once. Their color-changing skin had gone a deep blue, the shade of intense concentration. Something was wrong with humans, something that did not fit any model, any pattern, any logic. Crix had built their career on understanding species. Every creature in the galaxy had predictable behaviors. Predators hunted, prey fled, hive minds served their queens, pack animals followed their alphas. Every action could be traced back to survival, reproduction, or resource gathering. But humans broke the rules. Crix pulled up file after file, report after report, footage from 100 different worlds, and everywhere they looked, they found the same impossible pattern. On Mordrath 6, the Skethrix lived. They were insect-like predators, covered in hard shells and poison spines. They ate their own weak young. It was normal for them. Efficient. Only the strong survived. A human woman named Dr. Elena Vasquez had lived among them for 11 years. At first, the Skethrix ignored her. She was too small to be a threat, too strange to be food. But then she found an abandoned larva. The Skethrix had left it to die. It was too small, too weak. Dr. Vasquez took it home. She fed it by hand. She kept it warm. She sang to it when it made distress sounds. The Skethrix watched with confusion. Why waste resources on something that would surely die? But the larva did not die. It grew. It became strong. And when it reached adulthood, it refused to leave her. Over the years, Dr. Vasquez raised 17 abandoned larvae, the ones the Skethrix had thrown away. She gave them names. She taught them games. She treated them like her own children. In their language, it meant something like clan mother of soft skin. It was the highest honor they had ever given to an outsider. 30 years later, her adopted children still visited her. They brought her gifts. They protected her home. Crix moved to the next file. On the ocean world of Pelagius, the abyssal leviathans ruled the deep. They were massive creatures, 60 meters long, with teeth the size of shuttles. During birthing season, they killed anything that approached: ships, submarines, other leviathans. Their protective instincts were absolute. Human divers changed that. A team of researchers had been studying the leviathans for decades. They moved slowly. They kept their distance. They never threatened the young. Generation after generation, they showed the leviathans that they meant no harm. Now, human divers could swim alongside leviathan pods during birthing season. The massive creatures allowed them close to newborns. They did not attack. They did not flee. They simply accepted. No other species in the galaxy had ever achieved this. Many had tried. All had died. But humans somehow had become trusted. Crix found more examples. So many more. On Research Station Theta 9, a human janitor named Marcus Chen found a clutch of abandoned eggs. They belonged to the Vrix, a species so dangerous that their homeworld had been quarantined for 1,000 years. The Vrix were pure predators. They had no concept of mercy. Marcus did not know what the eggs were. He only knew they were cold and alone. So he took them to his quarters. He built an incubator from spare parts. He turned the eggs by hand every 6 hours, keeping them warm, keeping them alive. For 3 months, he cared for those eggs. He talked to them. He played music for them. He treated them like they were his own. When the Vrix authorities arrived to reclaim the eggs, they found 7 healthy hatchlings. The babies had imprinted on Marcus. They followed him everywhere. They slept in his bed. They tried to share their food with him. The Vrix were not a sentimental species. They had no word for love in their language. But they recognized something in what Marcus had done. Something that transcended species and instinct. They gave him an embassy on their forbidden world. The first non-Vrix to ever set foot there and live. Crix leaned back from the screens. Their skin had gone pale white with shock. The pattern was clear now. Humans did not just tolerate alien young. They actively sought them out. They protected them. They loved them. Not because they gained anything from it, not because it helped their species survive, but simply because the young were vulnerable and needed help. It made no evolutionary sense. Humans should have died out millions of years ago, wasting their resources on creatures that could never repay them. Instead, they had spread across the stars faster than almost any other species. Crix began to form a theory. Maybe that was exactly why humans had succeeded. They pulled up historical files from Earth, the human homeworld. What they found made their multiple eyes widen even further. Humans had domesticated wolves. Wolves. Apex predators with fangs and claws and pack-hunting instincts. Humans had looked at those killing machines and thought, I want one as a friend. And the wolves had agreed. Over thousands of years, wolves became dogs. They changed. They adapted. They became loyal companions who loved humans more than they loved their own kind. Humans had done the same with horses, with cats, with birds and fish and snakes and spiders. They kept venomous creatures as pets. They built relationships with animals that could kill them. It was insane. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. Crix composed a report. They titled it, The Human Bonding Phenomenon, a Study in Evolutionary Paradox. The summary was simple. Humans possessed an instinct that no other species in the galaxy shared. They bonded with anything, everything. They looked at creatures that could eat them and saw potential friends. They looked at helpless young and saw children worth protecting, regardless of species. This instinct should have killed them. Instead, it had made them one of the most successful species in known space. Because when you befriend everything, everything befriends you back. Crix saved the report and sent it to the Galactic Archives. Then, they pulled up the live feed from Dr. Samuel Okonkwo's quarters. 5 hours had passed since Ambassador Thrixall left her cubs with the human. On the screen, Samuel sat on the floor. Solo was still asleep in his lap. Mira was trying to braid his hair, with her clumsy little claws. Keth sat beside him, pressed against his side, listening as Samuel told another story. The human was teaching them a song now, something simple and rhythmic, a children's song from Earth. The cubs did not know the words, but they were trying to hum along. Crix watched for a long time. They had studied 1,000 species. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had witnessed acts of cruelty and kindness across the galaxy. They had never seen anything quite like this. A prey species, surrounded by predator cubs, completely at peace. And the cubs, the children of the galaxy's most feared hunters, completely at peace with him. Crix saved this footage too. They had a feeling the galaxy would need to see it someday. Would need to understand what it meant. Humans were not just strange, they were something new, something the universe had never seen before. And Crix was beginning to think that maybe, just maybe, that was a very good thing. In the council chambers, things were falling apart. Ambassador Thrixall stood at the speaking platform, her claws digging into the metal. The Meridax representative had just finished a 3-hour presentation. Charts, data, testimonies, all designed to prove that the Vorkai were too dangerous to be trusted with trade access. They are predators, the Meridax said. His voice was smooth and cold. They have destroyed colonies, killed millions. Can we truly give them access to our shipping lanes, our stations, our people? Thrixall wanted to roar. She wanted to show them just how dangerous the Vorkai could be. But she forced herself to stay calm. Her mate was dead. Her cubs were with a stranger. And if she lost control now, everything would fall apart. The Vorkai have not attacked any colony in 80 years, she said. We have changed. We seek trade, not war. Changed? The Meridax laughed. You are asking us to believe that the galaxy's apex predators have suddenly become peaceful? That we should trust our children around creatures who once hunted sentient species for sport? The chamber murmured. Fear spread like poison. Thrixall could smell it in the air. Far across the station, in a maintenance corridor, someone else could smell something too. The assassin moved through the shadows. They wore the uniform of a cleaning worker. Their face was hidden behind a mask. In their hand, they carried a small device, a neural toxin dispersal unit. Colorless, odorless, deadly. The Merididax Consortium had sent them. If they could not defeat the Vorkai politically, they would defeat them emotionally. Kill the ambassador's cubs, and the ambassador would lose control. She would attack. She would prove that the Vorkai could not be trusted, and the trade deal would die forever. The assassin found the ventilation access point for the residential wing. They attached the device. Set the timer. 20 minutes until release. Then they disappeared into the station's endless corridors. In Samuel's quarters, the cubs had finally settled down for real sleep. Sola was still in his lap. Mira had curled up on his bed, wrapped in his blanket. Keth lay near the door, still guarding even in his dreams. Samuel was tired. He had not slept in almost 20 hours, but he did not mind. There was something peaceful about watching the cubs rest. Something that reminded him of nights back home, when his sister's children would fall asleep on his couch after a long day of playing. Children were children, anywhere in the galaxy. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed, a siren wailed. The station's emergency system activated with a voice that echoed through every corridor. Warning. Toxic substance detected in residential wing ventilation. All occupants evacuate immediately. All occupants evacuate immediately. The cubs woke instantly. Sola screamed. Mira fell off the bed. Keth jumped to his feet, claws out, looking for the threat he could not see. Samuel's mind raced. Neural toxin in the vents. That meant the air itself was becoming poison. They had minutes at most, maybe less. He looked at the door. The evacuation route would take them through the contaminated corridors. The cubs were small. Their lungs were not fully developed. They would breathe in more of the toxin relative to their body size. They would die first. No. Samuel grabbed the cubs and pushed them toward the bathroom. It was the smallest room in his quarters, the easiest to seal, the easiest to protect. "Inside," he said. "Now, do not argue." Keth hesitated. He did not want to hide. He wanted to fight. But Samuel's voice left no room for discussion. "Your sisters need you," Samuel said. "Protect them. I will handle this." Something in Keth's eyes changed. He recognized what Samuel was doing, what Samuel was choosing. The cub nodded once. Then he took his sister's hands and led them into the bathroom. Samuel sealed the door behind them. Now he worked fast. The emergency kit under his bed had a filter mask, but only one. He put it aside. The cubs would need clean air, not him. He grabbed a shirt, soaked it in water from the sink. Water could filter some particles. Not enough, but some. He found activated charcoal in the emergency kit. It was meant for poison treatment, but it could also filter air. He crushed it, mixed it with more water, spread the paste on the wet shirt. A makeshift air filter. Crude, imperfect, but it might work. He wedged the shirt into the gap under the bathroom door. Then he grabbed everything else he could find. Towels, sheets, his own jacket. He soaked them all and pressed them against every crack, every seam, every tiny space where contaminated air might seep through. His eyes were starting to burn. His throat felt tight. The toxin was already here. Samuel positioned himself against the bathroom door. His body became another seal, another layer of protection between the poison and the children inside. He could hear them through the door. Sola was crying. Mira was asking what was happening. Keth was telling them to be quiet, to stay still, to trust the human. Trust the human. Samuel closed his eyes. The burning was getting worse. He could taste copper in his mouth. Blood. His lungs were starting to fill with fluid. But the door behind him was sealed. The filter was holding. The cubs were breathing clean air. That was all that mattered. Time passed. Samuel did not know how long. Minutes felt like hours. The toxin was destroying him from the inside. But he did not move. He did not let go. He kept his back against that door with every bit of strength he had left. Finally, he heard it. Heavy boots in the corridor. Shouts in multiple languages. The rescue team had arrived. The door to his quarters exploded inward. Emergency responders in full hazard suits rushed inside. Samuel tried to speak, tried to tell them about the cubs, but no words came out. Blood was pouring from his eyes. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was a responder opening the bathroom door. 3 small faces looked out, scared, but alive. Alive. Samuel smiled. Then he collapsed. In the council chambers, Ambassador Thrixall received the news. Her cubs were safe. The human had protected them. The human was in critical condition. She did not remember leaving the chamber. She only remembered arriving at the medical bay and seeing the small broken body on the table. Dr. Samuel Okonkwo, the prey species who had offered to watch her cubs. The soft, defenseless human who had asked for nothing in return. He had absorbed over 80% of the toxin exposure. He had used his own body as a shield. He had chosen to die so that her children might live. Her children. Not his species, not his family, not his responsibility. But he had protected them anyway. Thrixall looked at her cubs. They were huddled together near the viewing window, refusing to leave until they knew the human was okay. "Mama," Kef said. His voice was quiet, broken. "He told me to protect my sisters. He said he would handle everything. And he did, Thrixall whispered. She turned to the medical staff. Her voice was cold, absolute. Save him. Use every resource this station has. If he dies, I will tear down the heavens themselves to find whoever did this. The doctors worked faster. Outside the medical bay, the Meridax assassin had already been caught. Security Chief Valorian had traced the toxin to its source within minutes. The consortium's involvement was exposed for all to see. But Thrixall did not care about politics anymore. She only cared about the human who had given everything for children who were not his own. She would not let that sacrifice be in vain. 1 week later, Samuel woke up. The first thing he saw was white. Bright lights, clean walls, the soft hum of medical equipment. For a moment, he thought he was back on Earth, in some hospital, after an accident he could not remember. Then he turned his head and saw the Vorkai. Ambassador Thrixall sat beside his bed, 8 feet of armored scales and deadly claws, folded into a chair designed for smaller species. Her golden eyes were fixed on him with an intensity that should have been terrifying. At the foot of his bed, 3 small bodies were piled together in sleep. Keth, Mira, Sola. The cubs had refused to leave his side for 4 days, the medical staff told him later. They had to bring in special bedding for them, special food, special everything. You are awake, Thrixall said. Samuel tried to speak. His throat felt like sandpaper. The ambassador reached over and pressed a cup of water to his lips. He drank slowly. The cubs, he managed. Safe, because of you. Good. Thrixall stared at him. Her claws tapped against the chair's armrest. She looked like she was trying to solve a puzzle that made no sense. Why did you do it? Samuel blinked. Do what? Risk your life, sacrifice yourself, for children who were not yours, for a species that could have been your enemy. Her voice cracked slightly. You almost died. The doctors said another 5 minutes of exposure would have killed you. Why would you do that for strangers? Samuel thought about it. He remembered the smoke in his lungs, the blood in his eyes, the weight of his body against the bathroom door. He remembered thinking that he was going to die, and being okay with it, because the alternative was worse. They were scared, he said simply. They needed help. I could help. That is not an answer. It is the only answer I have. Thrixall shook her head. I have spent 100 years studying other species, learning their patterns, their motivations. Everything can be explained by survival, by reproduction, by gain. But humans, she gestured at him with one claw. You break every rule. You protect things that cannot protect you back. You love things that could kill you. You give without expecting to receive. Samuel smiled. It hurt his face, but he smiled anyway. Do you want to know a secret? The ambassador leaned forward. Where I come from, Samuel said, we learned a long time ago that the universe is cold. Space is empty. Life is rare and precious and fragile. And the only way any of us survive is by taking care of each other. He looked at the sleeping cubs at his feet. It does not matter what species they are. It does not matter if they can pay us back. All children. They carry the future in their small hands. And anyone who would hurt a child, anyone who would let a child suffer when they could prevent it, has lost something important. Something that makes life worth living. Thrixall was silent for a long time. Among my people, she finally said, family is everything. We kill for our cubs. We die for our cubs. We destroy worlds for our cubs. But we never, never trust outsiders with them. She reached out. Her massive clawed hand hovered over Samuel's chest. Until now. She placed her hand over his heart. The touch was gentle. Barely any pressure at all. Clan brother, she said. The word came through the translator, but Samuel could hear the weight behind it, the meaning. My cub's father is dead, but they have found another. If you accept. Samuel felt tears prick his eyes. He did not know what to say. He had just been doing what felt right, what any human would do. But apparently, that was not normal. Not for the rest of the galaxy. Not for species who had never learned to love beyond their own kind. I accept, he said. 3 days later, Samuel stood in the Galactic Council chambers. He was still weak. A medical frame hovered beside him, ready to catch him if he fell. But he had insisted on being there. The Council had questions. The galaxy had questions. And he had answers. Delegates from 300 species filled the chamber. They watched him with eyes and sensors and organs he could not name. Some looked curious. Some looked scared. Some looked like they were trying to understand something that did not fit their view of the universe. A Thessian delegate spoke first. Dr. Okonkwo, the galaxy has seen the footage of what you did. We have studied human behavior for decades, but we still do not understand. Why do you bond with creatures that could kill you? Why do you protect young that are not your own species? Samuel gripped the speaking platform. He thought about his grandmother and her stray dogs. He thought about Elena Vasquez and her Skethrix larva. He thought about Marcus Chen and his Vrix eggs. He thought about every human who had ever looked at something dangerous and seen a friend. Where I come from, he said, we have a saying. It takes a village to raise a child. We never said the village had to be human, or that the child did either. The chamber was silent. You ask why we do this. I think you are asking the wrong question. You should ask, why would we ever stop? He took a breath. The young are sacred. All young. They represent hope, possibility, everything we could become. When a child is in danger, any child, every human instinct tells us to protect them. He looked around the chamber, at the predators and the prey, at the ancient species and the young ones, at beings made of flesh and crystal and light. You are afraid of your predator instincts. We made peace with ours a long time ago. We are the species that looked at wolves and saw family, that looked at horses and saw partners, that looked at the void of space and saw neighbors. A commotion near the entrance. Samuel turned. 3 small figures were pushing through the crowd. Security tried to stop them, but they dodged and weaved with predator grace. Keth, Mira, Sola. They had escaped from wherever they were supposed to be. They were running toward him. Samuel knelt down, ignoring the protest from his weakened body. The cubs crashed into him. Keth grabbed his arm. Mira wrapped around his leg. Sola climbed into his lap and buried her face in his chest. The chamber watched in stunned silence. Ambassador Thrixall followed her cubs into the room. She did not apologize for the interruption. She simply walked to the speaking platform and stood beside Samuel. You asked why predators trust humans with their cubs, Samuel said. He held Sola close. He felt Keth's claws gentle against his skin. He heard Mira purring against his leg. It is because we understand something the rest of the galaxy forgot. The measure of a species is not how well they protect their own. It is how well they protect everyone else's. Thrixall stepped forward. She placed her clawed hand over Samuel's heart, just as she had in the medical bay. Clan brother, she announced to the chamber. Her voice carried to every corner. My cub's father died. Today they have found another. The Vorkai recognize this human as family, and we protect our family. The chamber erupted in whispers. A predator species had claimed a human, had made a prey creature one of their own. Impossible. And yet, looking at the cubs wrapped around Samuel, it seemed like the most natural thing in the universe. Years later, the phrase entered common use across the galaxy. Human safe. It meant trustworthy with young. It meant someone who would die before letting harm come to a child. It meant one of those strange, wonderful, impossible primates who looked at the universe's most dangerous creatures and saw something worth protecting. Alien parents began requesting human caretakers. Human doctors became the most sought-after specialists in pediatric medicine across 12 sectors. A human lullaby became the most downloaded audio file in galactic history, because somehow it worked on everything. And on a dozen worlds, in 100 languages, a new proverb took root. If you want to know if a species is worthy of trust, watch how humans treat their children. Then, watch how humans treat yours. On Station Meridian 7, now years after the incident, Samuel Okonkwo walked through the corridors with 3 Vorkai following close behind. They were not cubs anymore. Keth stood nearly as tall as him now. Mira had her mother's grace. Sola, no longer a runt, moved with quiet confidence. "Father," Keth said, the word came naturally now. "The council session starts in an hour." Samuel nodded. He was a full ambassador now, the first human to hold joint citizenship with the Vorkai. His job was to help the galaxy understand what humans had always known. That love did not care about species. That protection did not require blood relation. That the strongest bond in the universe was not between predator and predator or prey and prey, but between anyone who chose to care for something smaller and weaker than themselves. He looked at his children, regardless of biology, and smiled. "Then let us not be late," he said. And together, the human and his Vorkai family walked toward the future.